Can two siblings navigate challenges, resilience, and success? And can faith and persistence truly shape your destiny? Find out in this episode with two fabulous sisters, Amy Mosser and Molly Kroeker, who share their inspiring journey of personal growth and entrepreneurial spirit. Would you like to think and grow rich? If so, keep on listening. This podcast is dedicated to those who have found their way from fear to freedom and for those who are considering undertaking this amazing journey. This is the Courage to Be podcast, and I am your host, Tanya Vasallo. Before we get into this episode, I'm thrilled to share that I'm hosting a series on how people's lives have been influenced by the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. If you'd like to learn and apply how to think and grow rich, go to the show notes to get some wonderful free resources and join the Courage to Be community. I look forward to being your guide and mentor so you can transform your life. Welcome back to the Courage to Be, where we have powerful conversations to transform your life and your business. And today we are continuing with the Think and Grow Rich series of the book of Napoleon Hill. We have two sisters with us, which is fabulous. I'm so excited. We have Amy Mosser and Molly Kroeker. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you. Good to be here. Thanks for asking.
I'm so excited because we've known each other from the Institute, from the Napoleon Hill Institute. And you guys always look similar to me. Like, I try and memorize people's names when I have the screen, with all the Zoom people. I'm like, I always got you guys confused. I'm like, Amy, Molly, no, I got that one wrong again. So tell me a little bit about your story of how each of you, will go one by one, of how you landed with Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, with the Institute, working together as sisters. Who wants to start?
I'll start because normally Molly does. She's 20 months older than me, and I always defer to her. So I'm going to start today. I'll tell you, like I said, we're 20 months apart, and we slept in the same bed growing up until Molly left for college, Holly hobby sheets and all. And we have just always been very close, never, ever gotten into a fight, which is really probably because I just let her boss me around. No, I'm kidding. But anyway, so fast forward, we went to the same college, we're in the same sorority, and Molly moved away for physical therapy school. And I stayed here and right out of college became an entrepreneur with my husband at the time. So I have been a 1099 employee, never worked for anybody since I was 22. So almost 30 years I have been an entrepreneur. And Molly and I got pregnant at the same time, living in different states. Our first children are 10 days apart. And I remember Molly had her baby and went back to work because she was a physical therapist at the time. And she just was miserable. We were in two different states. We wanted to raise our kids together. So I propped my baby in the front seat back then, turned off the airbags, propped the bottle, a brand newborn baby. And I went to Iowa and picked her up and said, move in with me. Tell your husband to sell the house. And that's truly, her husband's absolutely wonderful. So she and her son moved in with us, and we've raised our children temporarily while our husband sold the house. And they both got wonderful jobs here in Lincoln, Nebraska. And so we truly, our second sets of children are 6 weeks apart, and our children have been raised as siblings. And we have just truly had the best life ever.
Wow, this is fascinating. You're almost like twins, like everything happening. Twins, even soul twins. Let's call it soul twins, even though you're not biological twins, but this is fascinating. And Molly, tell us about your part, when Amy asked you to move in and sell the house, and what was that like for you?
Oh my goodness. Well, I did not realize what having a baby would do. It was a lot of work, and I was just not prepared for that, even though we were married for 5 years. We were both professionals, but we were like, whoa, this is a lot of work. So I knew that minute we were thinking about moving to North Carolina. And honestly, the day that we had Sam, I was like, I just want to move back to my family. So that is what we did. And for 20 years, we were in Lincoln, and then we moved again. Our parents moved to Lincoln from 90 miles away just so they could be around grandkids. And then here we moved
about 40 miles down the road to a small little town on the lake called Ashland. And we were only here for a year. And Amy had bought her house of her dreams with her new husband. And they had this beautiful, amazing, very, very opulent home. But it just wasn't filling her soul at all. She's like, I'm lonely. And we don't have any friends. I mean, people are kind of doing their own thing. We're empty nesters now. Those kids that you heard Amy share, they're, the last set are in college, the first set, they're out. And so really, I don't know what to do. And so being in real estate, Amy being a realtor, her client that she had sold a home on the lake to called and said, you know what, we just aren't here a lot. They're always traveling the world and they've got another home in Lincoln. And Amy's like, well, you know what, I think I'm going to buy it. And she can tell you the rest of that story because it's really powerful. But I'm thinking, there is no way. I said right away when she moved out here, I'm like, nobody wears heels here, just so you know that. Like, you can't wear heels because Amy was born in heels and I was born in workout clothes. And so I'm like, it's really casual out here, but no one's from here. So everyone's super nice. We're all in the same boat. And that's really when I saw, when she ended up moving here next door, basically, we started our coaching program called Sisters Next Door Coaching. And it's just about sisterhood. Because a lot of people either want a sister or they've lost a sister or they have a sister or they just want to be a part of a community. And we get to teach these incredible principles that we live by through the Napoleon Hill Institute. And we get to teach those with a little twist, we make them ours. And it's been an incredible journey for sure.
Wow, I love this. And what about, you mentioned Napoleon Hill, we've talked about the Institute too. When did you both first encounter Think and Grow Rich, the book?
I read Think and Grow Rich in college and I loved it. But it wasn't until my son had a life-changing diagnosis. At age 2, he began to have several hundred seizures a day. And I finally brought him in through the emergency room to Minnesota. And when I walked into this epilepsy unit, there were children there that had seizure helmets. They had the wires, they were hooked up to the EEG machines. They were being tube fed. They were maybe teenagers, but still like 2-year-olds, some in wheelchairs, just very, very delayed. And I remember walking in and saying, why are we here? My son just is having several hundred seizures. Like, he's not like this yet. And the doctor said, or the nurse said, these children have Lennox-Gastaut syndrome. Don't worry, Charlie just has seizures. We'll get them under control. 24 hours later, I got the diagnosis of Lennox-Gastaut syndrome for my child. So I was given a 99% chance that he would remain very, very delayed, that he would always be on medications. The seizures are medication resistant, so you're constantly having to change them. Many of the children remain at like a 2 or 3, 4-year-old level. And I got that diagnosis and crawled on my hands and knees to the end of the hallway. And there was a church across the street, and there was a bright light, and I could see the cross on top of the church. And I had a divine experience. And I just had this inner voice say, stand up, your child's going to be a miracle. And that is truly, I decided, and that's one of the decisions, one of the principles of Napoleon Hill. I made that decision and all of the principles just came flooding back. And I chose to live my life from the end, right? I saw my child healed. I saw that they were going to be writing papers on him. I saw that he was going to be invited to birthday parties. I saw that he was going to be playing baseball. In fact, he's in college now and playing baseball. He's a left-handed pitcher. So I envisioned that well before, and in between there were therapists twice a day. There was a full-time nurse for 3 years. There were IEPs. I didn't look at the internet. I didn't listen to doctors. I stayed in my lane. I truly kept my blinders on because I imagined and I knew that he was going to be healed, that he was going to be the 1%. And so these principles, I began living unknowingly, really, that unconscious competence, because I had read them. They were in my subconscious, and the principles are what has propelled me to great success in business, my child to have clear MRIs. He's the only one of record that I've been able to find. And we've had lots of studies done on him that's seizure-free, medication-free, and disability-free. So
Amy,
grateful.
that is just amazing. So when you read the book for the first time in college, that you said you kind of like forgot about that, was that because someone recommended the book to you? Like, I wish someone would have presented Think and Grow Rich to me in college, but how did that show up in your lap, Amy, in college?
It was a business professor recommended it. And I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I always knew there was something a little different about me. I used my imagination a lot. I knew that I wanted to own my own business. I didn't know exactly what it was.
Fascinating. And then Molly, when did you first get introduced? Did Amy introduce you to Think and Grow Rich because of everything she was going through, or did you pick up this book somewhere else?
Well, back in my day, well, I always say I thought personal growth and development was for people that didn't have friends. I did not know anything. I was in the sorority. I was social chairman. I had plenty of friends. I had plenty of friends from graduate school, from physical therapy, and I was flooded with friends. And so I thought, well, I don't need any of that stuff. And it first came across my lap actually when I left physical therapy, when I left my career to pursue social marketing. And I was first introduced to personal growth and development. And that was one of the early books that I read in my career. How to Win Friends and Influence People, followed right by Think and Grow Rich. And I remember reading it and I read it. Okay. Then I read it and I highlighted it. So I'm getting better. And at the Institute, that's really where the study comes in. And so, but all the principles, I've lived by these principles all along, right? I just didn't know that they existed in this book. And that's what I love to say, because my favorite, obviously, is persistence. I love persistence. It's one of my favorite principles. So, I was living by these things, but I didn't really know of them until I read the book much later, like more like in my mid 30s.
Tell us about persistence and why you like persistence so much, because I know there's a background there, but the
Oh.
listener might not know about you.
Yes. Well, I have been a runner all my life. Obviously, being a physical therapist kind of lends itself to that. We would all run over the lunch hour so we wouldn't fall asleep in neurophysiology, because it was always right after lunch and it was warm and cozy in the room. So we found that running was like a great way to stay awake. And I proceeded just on that track. I'd actually grown up with a mom that ran in the 70s. She ran a marathon, and women just didn't do that. Back in those days, the police actually brought her home one morning when I was 9 years old. I remember this like yesterday. And it was unsafe for women to be running in my hometown in Nebraska, 50,000 people, which is kind of funny now. But I've always just, that's been a great way. I love to be outside, and it's been a great way just to reduce anxiety. And so I've been a runner, ran my first marathon at 29. So definitely persistence with a young baby and a traveling husband and working full time plus beyond that, right? In healthcare. And that love turned into a love of triathlons. And I knew, like I knew from my first triathlon. And I actually found my original book of my goals. And it was 2003 when I podiumed in my very first triathlon. And I said, I'm going to do an Ironman someday. I thought I would be 40 when I did that Ironman, but we were just in a busy stage of life with kids and club sports and all that. And I was 52. Actually, I just completed Ironman in September. And that is an act of persistence, because it doesn't matter truly how much you train, because I was well trained, but I feel like I had a little bonus. I had a little edge over even some of the elite athletes, because I had the principles of Napoleon Hill and persistence. I knew to get off your bike after 112 miles and run a marathon, 26.2 miles, it takes a lot of mindset there. It takes a lot of mindset. It doesn't matter how many marathons I've run or how many century rides I've done. That is an act of persistence. And that's really, and I kept thinking that it really catapulted our business. And we drew in just crowds of people that wanted to work with us because of that.
That's fascinating. You feel like that correlated because you did the persistence with the Ironman, and that obviously opened up something within you. I guess the attractor factor, huh? That started bringing it in. So let me go back. At what point did both of you start working with your sisterhood coaching? How did that show up?
There was a season I walked through a really, really challenging divorce. We owned millions of dollars in real estate. We had a lovely, beautiful country club life, lovely, beautiful friends, and we weren't good together. And so when I walked through that season alone, it was a season that Molly and I had to grow, and I had to pull back a bit. And I really decided that is when I really got into my meditation, a lot of the Napoleon Hill, our autosuggestion. I really had to dig deep. And that meant I needed to be alone. It was a season of me just really growing and digging deep. And so, oddly enough, during that season where I needed to learn to live from the inside out, love myself, I knew that broken attracted broken. So I needed to really be healthy if I wanted to continue to thrive. I started a new business, a real estate team as well then. So I really focused on myself and getting my financial situation back to where it was. And so I served and helped created a beautiful all women's real estate team. But it was during that season that I think Molly and I really grew. So our kids were still close. But when you get divorced, you're not the friend that they call to go out to dinner. There's all the couple friends, right? You're the single one, you're the third wheel. So I wasn't called a lot. And that was that season of loneliness. But that's where I did the most growth and had to really look inward. And so fast forward to marrying the man of my dreams. I met him at a snack stand at our kids' basketball game. Just when you're not looking for anyone, I had written everything down that I wanted in a husband. I tucked it in my Bible on Jeremiah 29:11, for I know the plans I have for you. And I went on with my life and knew that he would arrive when the time was right. So when I did finally, we merged two families and blended them, and it's been so lovely. But I really jumped back in to that season again of growth. And like Molly said, we moved into the most lovely house on a lovely golf course. And I knew that I needed to pivot. For everybody else, making seven figures, I looked like I had the beautiful life, but I knew that I wanted bigger conversations. And that's where Cleona O'Hara, I added her on Instagram, and that's where I found Napoleon Hill Institute. I jumped into the self-confidence camp that she started. Didn't know her. I didn't know what all of that entailed, and the rest is history. I told Molly about it, and she joined me as well.
Wow. We're going to take a quick pause because I want to come back to this and how both of you came back together. Join Amy and Molly at their live event, Live a Limitless Life. It's an exclusive in-person event with the incredible sisters. Get ready to immerse yourself in a day of powerful teachings through real-life experiences and success. You'll get to connect with a supportive community of like-minded individuals committed to growth. You're guaranteed to leave feeling empowered, inspired, and equipped with the tools to make 2024 your most incredible year yet. This event is live on Friday, February 17th, 2024. If you're listening to this episode past the date, you can still go to the show notes for a bunch of other free goodies from Amy and Molly, as well as myself. So, Molly, how did it feel to you when you saw Amy? I mean, you guys have been close, obviously, since birth, just 10 months apart. And she's going through this divorce. She's pulling back a little bit. There's not that much of that connection. She's going through her own growth. How did that feel like to you, as the sister? Were you just giving her the space? Was there some hurt there? Because I think this happens for all of us as siblings. I feel like it's this ebb and flow, right, with our relationships. So I'm curious how you dealt with that when Amy was in that particular moment of life.
I would love to give you a pretend answer and say it was all lovely and flowers and rainbows, but it wasn't at all. Towards the end, Amy and I look a lot alike. And towards the end, people honestly would be like, "Oh, do you know Amy Mosser?" And I'm like, "Nope, I don't." Not because of her, but because of her then husband. So we just started to pull apart. I didn't love what that marriage looked like. And we didn't want our kids around that because we wanted them to know what a marriage can be. And so I pulled away just as much as Amy pulled away. I pulled away as well. And then during those seasons of divorce and obviously working on yourself, I was invested in my own busy life. And so I went about my life and I wasn't a great sister to her. And, I've apologized for it since because I've had friends go through divorce. But honestly, I hadn't had anybody close to me go through divorce. So I don't think I really knew how to handle it. And I mean, obviously, it's still there for her, but I just, I was happily married. I'm like, just get your stuff together, girl. And, not really understanding that. Like I said, I've since then had friends go through divorce, and now I understand how to be a true friend to them and walk alongside them. So I'll be honest, it wasn't my best self, but isn't that the beauty of growth, is that you learn something. So I'm like, thank goodness, at the expense of Amy, I now am a much better friend to any friend that goes through a divorce.
That is amazing. Thank you for your vulnerability and for being honest with that, because you're right. We tend to gloss these things over like, oh, yeah, I get along great with my sister. But the reality is the relationship, even with marriages, like any type of relationship that you've been in for a long time, there's going to be an ebb and flow, and there's going to be great years where you're super connected, and there's going to be other years that you're not as much, maybe for whatever the reasons are. Amy, you were talking about auto-suggestion, and that was part of your growth when you were going through all of this. Can you talk to us a little bit more of your pulling back and retracting, and needing time with yourself and what that looked like for you?
Absolutely. So when I walked away from my marriage, the easiest way for me to leave was to give him everything. And that was millions of dollars of real estate. And when I say I walked away with nothing, I truly, and Molly didn't even know until recently, truly walked away with nothing. He sealed my divorce. I had no recourse for anything, so no child support. And while I did have a very thriving real estate business, my kids' college fund was gone. Any savings, that any retirement was in those real estate pieces that were now his. And so I knew that I had to live on faith. I had to step out in faith. And with faith came that believing and knowing. And so that auto-suggestion is what created my faith. I talked to myself, I repeated to myself that I was a miracle magnet and I expected miracles. I belong in any room that I walk into. Any house that I had listed, I just knew that it was sold before I even put the sold bag on. I had to do that auto suggestion because I was living in 100% faith. And I knew that I had to live from the end. I had to picture it done. And that is faith. That is knowing that it's going to happen. And so in the morning, really in the middle of the night, in the wee hours of the morning is to me when the enemy comes into my mind. And so that's when I would put in auto-suggestion. That's when I would put in affirmations that I knew would get me through. And pretty soon I started to believe them. I believed them even before they'd happened. And of course, I witnessed miracle after miracle after miracle. And, I always say, if you're worried about your bank account, go serve more, go give more. And that is what I did. I increased my tithing. I started my real estate team, served more people, and my bank account I came back stronger in a shorter amount of time financially than I had been in the last 20 years.
This is amazing because we all know from Napoleon Hill that fear and faith can't live in the same place, no? And so you decided to choose faith over fear. But how do you do something like that? If our listeners are anywhere in a place of distress like where you were at, whether it's financial, whether you're going through a divorce, how did you tap into that faith side versus the fear? I mean, because being left with nothing, kids' college fund gone, like I can only imagine the sleepless nights. How do you handle something like that, Amy? What's your suggestion? And Molly, please feel free if you want to chime in after Amy suggests too.
Just like with my child's health, with another thing, it started with a decision. It was no decision is a decision. Indecision is a decision. So I decided And for me, I followed my intuition. I knew, like, I had the divine experience with my child in the hospital. I also had a moment when I knew, again, it was an internal intuition. I knew I could do it. I knew I could do it. It was like a switch, and I made a decision. And I made a decision that failure was absolutely not an option. I burned the boats. It was not an option. And I was going to create the life again and make it all back and then some monetarily for my children. So it started with a decision, and I knew there was no turning back because I've never failed at anything I have done in my life. And that is what I truly believe to this day. So yes, I think that decision is a leap of faith, right? Decision is faith.
Amazing. And I'm going to ask you for some of those miracle stories too that showed up, but I want to ask Molly, of these principles that we have in Think and Grow Rich, is faith a big one that's a big component for you too, Molly? Or do you feel like the most in touch with persistence? Like, which ones are some of the biggest principles that show up for you?
Well, I do think, and like Amy said, and I want people to know this, I think people think, oh, you've got each other. But when Amy made that decision, and decide, IDE, is to cut off, right? If you look at the last part of that word, "ide," so think of pesticide, insecticide, suicide, to cut off. And so to kill, right? To kill pests, to kill insects. She made a decision, but it's not like it was on a billboard, and it's not like she told me. Like, I made a decision. She did this alone. So during this part, right, she's walking through a divorce. And in my head, I'm thinking, get your stuff together, get your craft together, sister. And so that was made on her own. And I think that's really powerful for people to know, is often a decision will be lonely. It's not like you've got a team of people around you. You're like, yes, I've decided. What I noticed, though, was the tremendous growth. We've been reading the same thing. We've been listening to the same things. We know podcasts, but in the last few years, to see Amy's growth be so substantial, that's really where Napoleon Hill Institute came in, because then I was like stalking Cleona because I wanted to know, like, I'm thinking, why didn't you tell me about this? I want to do this camp. And so I think that's important for people to know. And faith, absolutely. It is. I come from such a background of, I have been an employee. And even in college, to go to graduate school, they took 40 of 800 applicants. So it was very, very rigorous. So I come from the opposite. My imagination, my intuition is not as strong, but my will is insane. The higher mental faculties of will and memory, because I had to be tested all the time. So I came from it at a totally different way. So sometimes I look at those really creative people, and I'm creative in my own way, but my stronger things have always been more of the abstract, the things I can see almost like. In faith, you can't see. And so one thing I've come to know is that you don't receive by doing, and that's faith. So if you're someone like me that is like, I'm used to the grind and hustle, and I've been successful because of that grind and hustle. And that was something we really wanted to take. Amy and I have absolute different strengths. We both are huge lovers of people. And if you meet our parents, you know why, because they love people too. So it's just in our blood. Positive mental attitude is definitely one that we both agree on. But it's neat because Amy's got different strengths and I have different strengths. But when you bring them together, that's what's really made for this massive collaboration that in this community being born. And that's what people want to be a part of, because they can identify with both of us. But so I feel like, yes, persistence is one, personal initiative. I am always one to take action. And we have said that along this journey, that no one dies. We're like, well, no one died. Did 53 emails not go out to people about our class? Well, no one died. Just comedy after comedy. And so you just have to laugh at that. But absolutely, we definitely have faith. And that is believing you can't see it. The greatest thing is, if you are a recovering perfectionist or, like to control everything, faith is hard because you want to control it. But this is the beautiful thing, is it is easy and effortless. you just take inspired action when you're living in faith, and the how comes. Like, what a beautiful way to live. And you know this if we're both Christians and we've both been raised in a very loving Christian way, but faith, it just really became more profound for me through Napoleon Hill.
I love it, because to me, what it sounds like, you guys are the perfect match. It's like the yin and the yang, like as you were explaining it, I was thinking of the higher faculties, that Napoleon Hill talks about, the willpower, the memory, reasoning. I knew it was within our reasoning, memory, intuition, imagination. And so I'm thinking, yeah, it's for everyone that's listening, which ones are your strengths and which ones need to be improved, that you need to work on, because it's a balance. It's finding that balance of each one of them. So I love that you said that, Molly, that you have that persistence, you have that personal initiative, you have that willpower. And I do find that many times I'd be curious how it works for both of you, and if you help each other. If you, Amy, might be more connected with your intuition and you help Molly connect with her intuition. And then Molly's like, no, we need to keep on going. We need to keep on going, because Amy, you're more like, no, let's just have faith and let things happen. How does that work when you guys come together? Do you guys work that way?
We really do. We really do. And I will say that as we've gotten a bit older, with age comes wisdom, right? And I appreciate Molly's strengths. They used to bother me. I used to be like, oh, seriously, for Pete's sakes. And now I love that is a strength of hers. It is not a strength of mine. But I think when you choose to live in like love and no judgment, that judgment-free zone, you are free. And I think that is something that I have most recently learned to live in, is we're all doing the best we know how. So I'm not going to judge you. And it's my problem if I get triggered by something that you do. If something triggers me because of some garbage, some limiting belief, something that, from my past, that's on me. And I need to learn to not let it trigger me and live in love and no judgment. And that has been so freeing. It's been like very flowing. I kind of wondered how people lived in this flow state. I have definitely lived in more of it than Molly. I have lived the law of attraction, and just like I said, not on purpose. I realized I had something unique about me because I've built my business that way, or several businesses that way. And now I kind of apologized about it. I was a little embarrassed that I put out a really beautiful energy, and it translates into success for me and business. That being said, success is lonely. And I have found that my circle, it can sometimes be lonely because your circle gets a little smaller, because I surround myself only with, I don't watch TV. Only with people like you, right? That's why we're doing this podcast. I only surround myself with people that think the way that I do, as far as close friends. And there's not we're the 5%, right? We're the 5% that get to live this way because we chose to learn and study these principles.
I love this. And I'm so curious with this story. Okay, so you guys got a little bit more estranged, or were growing in your own ways, in your own separate ways. At what point did you guys come together? Because, like you're saying, Amy, with age comes wisdom. And I do feel as women, we're getting into our wisdom years. I don't like calling it menopause. I'm like, wisdom years. We are much wiser now. So, how did you guys come back together? You're like, okay, I'm not going to judge now. Like, did you just wake up one morning and you're like, I'm going to forgive Molly for not being there for me and not supporting me while I'm going through my divorce? Or did you, Molly, wake up and you're like, I'm not going to judge anymore? Or like, how did this happen? Was it a natural progressive thing that you guys sit down and have a conversation, came back together, and you're like, let's start a business together with everything we've learned? Like, what did this look like?
I think when you become the person that you're meant to become, right? So you have to walk through the ickiness of divorce. And I've seen it in every single one of my friends, is you show up better, you attract better, She attracted the man of her dreams, but she wouldn't have in the state she was in fresh out of a divorce, right? Or even 3 years later. So she became that person who is on this journey today. And, and that's good energy. I'm an energy person. I can match people's energy. I've got my own special gifts, and the energy was different. You can feel it when someone has loss and sadness and hard and grief. And we've been in parts of our relationship where it's very competitive. And I remember one time saying, like, why are we competing? Because I don't want to wear heels all day long, and you don't want to run marathons. Like, we have nothing to compete about. And then from there, once you're in a happy, like when you are so in love with who you are, as well as someone else, things just started changing. And we've always been close. There was never a part where we weren't close. We've always traveled together and everything like that. But just walking through a divorce, I wasn't there as much as she needed me, but she realized some things as well too, right? So it wasn't like a big, like, I'm back or anything, an announcement or anything like that. When you're with somebody you love, I want my kids to be around that. And I don't know. And I saw her really, really grow. So I saw some growth there, right? We're still traveling together. We still take all of our own, we still are traveling all the time together, honestly. And through all of that, but then I really did see another quantum leap, I would say. This was the quantum leap, was her with the self-confidence camp. That was 10xing. And she just, like I said, I didn't know that she was listening. I'm like, auto-suggestion, what is that? I don't even know what that is. I didn't know she was listening to, money mindset and some things like that playing in her ears at night. And so all those things that she had been working on. And then the cherry on the top was just the self-confidence camp. And that just quantum leaped her. And that's where I was like, okay, she's completely human.
Wow.
Yeah,
Let's take another pause, Amy. I want to come back to your perspective with this. So we'll be right back.
When was the last time that you read the book Think and Grow Rich? Now you can change your life and find success like Oprah, Bob Proctor, Kobe Bryant, Steve Harvey, Steve Jobs. All of these amazing people read and implemented the principles of the book Think and Grow Rich. If you want this for yourself, if you want to achieve success in a massive way, then here's what you have to do. First, go to the show notes right now and download my free gift to you, the ebook Think and Grow Rich. 2, read and study a chapter per week of the book. Read it daily and see how it applies to your life. Implement it. And 3, if you're needing extra support in achieving your goals and your success, then book a transformational strategic call with me. Just click on the link in the show notes. And if you can't find a slot to book with me, it's because I only offer these on a limited basis and by application. Just keep coming back. I've helped hundreds of people achieve success in their lives and business. And if you want that for you, then let's connect.
So we were talking, Molly was sharing with us, Amy, about that it wasn't like this big epiphany that you guys came together and I'm not going to judge you anymore. What was your perspective of how you guys came back together? And I also want to touch on that aspect of competition, because I think, are you guys only the 2 siblings, or are there more siblings in your family?
We do
Just
have
both of you?
a brother who's by far the smartest, and he's 7 years older than us. So
okay,
it's
so it's
wonderful.
almost like it was just the 2 of you. I feel like in many families, this whole competition, especially with girls, I don't know why, like I feel like even if there's multiple siblings, that it always tends to be that if there's only 2 girls, at some point there's some type of competition. And I don't know if that's because of parents' upbringing. Like, it'd be interesting to study more in the psychology of this. But what was it like for you, Amy? Did you feel that competition? Did you feel abandoned by Molly before you guys came back? Or you're like, no, I actually want my space? Like, what was your perspective in this and coming back together?
We were obviously both raised by the same parents, right? We experienced the same things in life, but it was 2 totally different perspectives. There was an event when I was 3 that I remember with my dad, who has now been sober for 47 years, and he's the most wonderful man. But I remember that as being trauma, and that changed my life. Molly was there. We remember exactly where we were. We remember the same details. Didn't affect her at all. But so that perspective, right, on the same, which I learned, we all have different perspective. But what happened was that trauma then carried with me of abandonment, be seen and not heard. And we were raised by a lovely mother who was a high overachiever, a very high overachiever. And so our expectations were to perform, 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 perform. And she, again, did the best she knew how, right? Because she was raised by a high achieving father. So now that I can look back and grant that grace, but you know, what I really had to do is I've always looked to Molly. Molly's always protected me. I think because I have never used my voice. And as odd as that sounds, I have finally started to use my voice. I didn't want to, I didn't want to, create any conflict. And which sounds sort of funny that I'm in real estate, that I'm killer in sales, but it's one of my skills is that I listen really well. I have great verbiage on negotiating, but I don't have to be a jerk doing it, and I get the deals done, so that's one of my superpowers is that listening, and then the way that I am enabled to present it to somebody. And so at any rate, the biggest thing for me is I chose to live when I stepped out from my marriage, I chose to live in gratitude. So while I was super angry about a lot of things, maybe not having any money, not having any support, I chose to find the things that I was really grateful for with my former husband. And because my children were half his and, were half him. And so they were fabulous. They were all of his fabulous traits. So I chose to live in gratitude. And I chose one of my miracle moments was I had to write a large check for taxes, and it took my savings in half. I mean, I left with a small amount of money and it took my savings in half. So I had to write like a $50,000 quarterly check. And instead of being like, what am I going to do? Like, this is like this is cutting my savings. I said, oh my gosh, I am so grateful that I made enough money that I needed to write a $50,000 quarterly check. And the very next day, I sold an apartment complex and got a $53,000 commission. So things like that happen to me and continue to happen to me daily because I expect them and I live in gratitude. So, but I had to make the decision to live in gratitude, right? That was a decision, and it is a daily decision for me to live in gratitude and see the best in everything. Because when you live in gratitude, you can't live in fear. Fear doesn't exist when you live in gratitude.
That is such a great example. So that for you, the competitive side never came out, Amy, or would you come back to gratitude with it? Like, how did you handle that? Because I know we all get, I don't know, maybe I can identify sometimes more with Molly, and because I am also the older sister. So sometimes I might get competitive, or I might get like, oh my God, get your stuff, like as I'm listening to both of you, I'm like, oh, what I'm comparing my own relationship with my sibling, with my sister. So I'm just curious to hear both sides, of just how was it for you, Amy? Like when that competitive side would show up, what would you do?
The competitive side with Molly, what I would honestly do, I am very competitive, which has served me well, right, in sales. But it also it can eat away at you. Like, how was I not enough? How was I not enough? With Molly, for my go-to is I would just back down. I would concede. I would let her win. I mean, I was like, I'm never going to be as good as she is. Again, the stories, the limiting beliefs that I told myself, I lived with for many, many years until I made the decision. And it was when I was alone, and it was when she honestly wasn't there for me. We've been able to have a conversation, and it was lovely just recently, like, Molly saying, I'm really sorry I wasn't there for you. But again, she was doing the best she knew how. She didn't know how to walk somebody through a divorce, right? So at any rate, competition is something it is a struggle for me because I am in sales. I am in 100% commission. That's all I have known my entire life is 100% commission. But what I have chosen to do is just always live in gratitude. I always say 0 + 0 is 0. So if I make any commission, even if I have to give part of it, split it with another agent, give part of it to my brokerage, I am so grateful. And with that just came an abundance of blessings monetarily because I live like that.
Thank you for sharing that perspective. And Molly, I'd be curious to how have you handled those moments of, like competition or judgment? how have you been able to soften those edges, to start pulling away from that?
I think for us, me being the older one, it was probably me being more competitive and Amy being more judgmental. But that was really her way of dealing with probably not feeling, as important. And so I think that's probably the part I felt. And I just had to be like, this has to be a place, just love people and know that they're doing the best that they know how. Like they are truly doing the best that they know how. And when you start to live like that, then the person, it typically is me, although I've really come a long ways. I'm not the person trying to
Yes,
ease
you have.
the end of like, when you're supposed to merge, I'm always the last one there, like waving, like, let me, thank you. If somebody's tailgating me, I'm just like, they're doing the best they know how. They are, and there is a reason that they are in a hurry. Like every little thing, someone's rude at a restaurant, whatever, circling it back to Amy. I mean, when you feel judged, is what you have to do is just, you have to come from a place of love. And then you just accept that people are doing the best that they know how. And when you start to live like that, that's a beautiful place.
That is amazing that both of you have been able to tap into letting go of the judgment, and not just replacing it with other things, like people are doing the best they can, surrounding it with love, surrounding it with gratitude. Is there any moments that judgment does come back up, not with each other, but with other people? Because we are human. Come on, like what do we do with this as we're all growing, right? Because we're all growing in this together. How do
I
you?
think I have a hard time because I have lived on 100% commission, 100% faith. Really, when I'm looking at people being indecisive, and, I tend to be like, oh, for Pete's sakes, just make a decision already. Or, and I always say seriously, but just again, stepping back and, they don't know all of this wonderful information that I know on living from the inside out. And so that I do get I used to in my former life. No, I would get irritated just at people who couldn't make a decision and who didn't work as hard as me, because Molly and I we're both taught to perform. But now I think, oh, how lovely that not everybody has to have the same mindset, because then we'd all be the same, as far as, we wouldn't have employees and yeah.
And plus, we're also each at different levels of awareness, right? What came to me, Amy, is like you should make a photocopy of the chapter on decision making of the book, of Napoleon Hill, and just carry copies of decision making. And when people are irritating, just give them the copy of that particular chapter. Like, just make a decision. That's great. Thank you for sharing that. So before both of you were talking about surrounding ourselves with the right people, and being with the right group of people. They say that we are the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with, right? What kind of people do you guys surround yourself with? I know you guys have an event coming up. Can you share a little bit about your event because of the people that you're attracting to this event? Talk to us a lot about your people, your tribe, your surroundings.
Oh, thank you. We are so excited. We just personal initiative, right, is one thing that we love. And we decided, we saw an event being done. We went to an event. We thought, well, we could do this. Like, we're big believers. If she can do it, then that means I can too, right? There's no competition. It's just like, well, this means I can do it too. And we set out to put on just a lovely, opulent event in Nebraska at the Farnham Hotel, which is just a beautiful space in Omaha, Nebraska. And what we, in our sisters program, we've adopted a sister, Carla Elizondo, and she's our other sister, but we keep attracting more sisters because it's just women want to be a part of this community. And so Sisters Next Door is really morphing into this big conglomeration of women who want to coach, but they want to be alongside someone. And the beautiful thing is that the 3 of us decided we're going to put this event on at the Farnham. And yes, there is work involved. We just don't sit back in a yoga pose and attract people, but we do, the law of attraction, the law of vibration, we do vibrate high. And so we have a lot of people that are just coming from everywhere, from all over. And Cleona O'Hara, the CEO and founder of the Napoleon Hill Institute, that she decided she's coming, and she's like, I'm going to come. And so it's just perfect because we're really teaching people on February 17th, just living from the inside out. And that would have been a really hard thing for me to understand, being a science person. What do you mean living from the inside out? But we're going to teach you this disruption phase. We're going to teach you about your conscious and subconscious. We're going to do some training on persistence, some training on faith. And then Cleona is really going to just lead the group. And we're expecting over 100 people. So, but lead the group in just some really incredible tools that you can take away. You will walk away equipped. You know, I've gone to so many, believe me, and so has Amy in 20 years. I've gone to lots of quote motivational events, and that's not what this is. This is a transformational event, and you will be transformed. But of course, when you have an event like this, who shows up? Nothing but incredible humans that are positive, and they're, you know, they have faith and they trust the process, and they're looking for transformation, and they're already working on themselves, right? Or maybe this is their first step, but they're headed in the right direction. And that's what this event will be about. So it's going to be absolutely, I mean, truly, I love the word epic. I'm like, it will be the most epic event, and there is no way you will walk away disappointed.
Thank you for sharing this. This is amazing. And is it just for women, for sisterhood, or is it men and women? Anyone
No,
can
we
come to
have men. We have men coming.
That
Yes.
is awesome. This is going to be great. I'm so happy for both of you putting this together. And what can people expect when they walk out of that day being in your company and your energy and your frequency and in your teachings? What are they going to come out with?
I think they will come out with confidence, faith. They will be vibrating just truly a more energy, just on a different level. Gratitude is one of the highest forms of vibration. And I know they'll walk out full of gratitude for such a beautiful day. The people that are coming, that are already signed up, we're nearly out of VIP tickets, but we will, and Molly can tell you about that. We have something to throw out to you guys if anybody would like to join us. We have already successful people. So the people that are coming really enjoy abundance and success in their life, because like attracts like. And we just surround ourselves with lovely, talented, successful people who just really walk in abundance and greatness. So we'd love to have you join us.
Yes, thank you for that, Amy. And Molly, you guys said you had something special for anyone that's listening. If they've
Yes.
made it all the way to the end of the podcast, what's their gift for them?
Oh, I love you. Thank you. We, you know, the first 5 people, you can find us on sistersnextdoor.com, and you can reach out to us through there. But the first 5 people that register, we will upgrade you to VIP, your seats to VIP. So let us know who you are. And honestly, the biggest thing I want to say is you'll walk out equipped. You will walk out equipped, and you will know now what those next 50, 60, 70 years, however long you're going to live, is going to look. And it's going to be something that you can put into action, and it's going to grow with you. So that is for any, and if you show up, if you are number 6 or number 10, that's okay too. We'll have a little special gift for you at the registration table if you do not make that VIP cutoff. But we are nearly sold out there. We're just excited to serve. You know, that's the bottom line, is we're there to serve. You're going to realize we love, love, love people. And we just want you to know these things that Amy and I have learned, and you have as well. And that it's just belief, right? Belief in who you are. That's powerful.
Wow. Thank you for your generosity. And it's a big savings for anyone that's thinking about this and considering the event. Just make that decision so that Amy's not chasing you
Yes.
down with a chapter of decision and giving that to you. Make a decision, head out to this event. If for any reason you can't make this event right now, you will be able to find more information about their Sisters Next Door. We'll have it in the show notes so that you can get in touch with them and be part, keep on growing the sisterhood and having more people get the support. I mean, both of you are just on fire. You have a heart of gold. I can sense, I can feel that energy. And this is just through Zoom, not even in person. So thank you so much for sharing and being so generous with our listeners too. I really do appreciate both of you. And as we wrap up, I have a question for each one of you. What would be the principle that you would like our listeners to focus on the most? That's your favorite one, or that you'd like them to take action on from Napoleon Hill's principles of success?
You may think I'm going to say decision, but I do think that the faith is most important. Walk in faith, live in faith. Faith is not being able to see the end, but taking the first step. And that's where I think everybody just needs to focus.
Thank you, Amy. How about you, Molly?
Well, I'm going to say decision, because you put decision with a burning desire and couple that with faith, and the possibilities are endless. And it is where I lived for a long time, is indecision is no decision.
Wow. You ladies are a dynamic duo. I just love it. The energy, I can just feel it. Thank you so much for your time. Thanks for your wisdom. Thanks for being with us today and for everything you've shared. Thank you both.
Thank you. Thank you for what you're doing for the world with your podcast. We so appreciate you.
Thank you.
I am so grateful that you joined me today. If you enjoyed it, there's one thing I'd like you to do. Click on the follow button so you don't miss a single episode. Leave me a rating and a review, and please share. As my way to thank you, email us a screen grab of your review at the email in the show notes, and we will send you a free Crafting Your Future guided visualization, which is so simple to do with outstanding results. It will empower you and give you the confidence to attract and create the life you've always desired. See you in our next episode.